Hello, and thanks for coming back. I'm doing some tuning of the equipment and trying out some new equipment, seeing how that works, and getting a handle, learning the audio, learning the part that Russell was doing for a long time, and adapting to this. Appreciate everybody being here. I had a guest that was coming, but I guess he's tied up. I did an extra one today because I was kind of thinking he was going to be able to make it, hoping to get him on here. He's running a little bit late. So while he's running late, it's Greg Sterner, who we've had on the radio show and had good conversations with. While he's running a little bit late, I wanted to talk about what's been going on in this week. And one of the things that comes out of situations like this, and I've seen from working for 25 years plus in disaster services, not just emergency disaster services, is that bad situations bring out the best in some people, and it's always encouraging. It brings out some the best in people, but many times the worst in systems and policies and procedures. And that can be disheartening, but hopefully we come through this thing a little bit better. The economic repercussions are going to be just all over the place. Don't know where they're going to go. You can see we're putting past episodes up on Facebook, and we're putting they're on YouTube also. If you search for MGH Media, they're there, and you can find them in there off the live link. Just doing it live to try out different things, new equipment today, mixing it up. I've been enjoying and using this as an excuse, and I got to be honest, it's been an excuse to catch up with old friends, and I've really enjoyed it. I can't seem to do anything unless I make it into a job. So it's been enjoyable. It's late at night, so everybody have to forgive me. I'm a little more exposed than normal. You can see a little neck here, and I normally don't like to walk around, especially in these times. But, after 9 o'clock, I like to cut loose. And, this is me cutting it loose. I like to brighten up the clothing, show a little neck. It's the way to ease off from the day. Forgive the bings and the bongs that you'll hear in the background. A lot of those are just the different stuff that's going on. It's amazing. If anybody wants any help about how to set up a system, I've worked out a lot of the kinks, and happy to help anybody with it. It's really been interesting. I have a couple friends that are doing it too. Not exactly my topic, what they'd be working on, but it's everybody's got their own thing. And part of the inspiration for doing this was I wanted to do something outside the scope of the radio show, but I also wanted to do something during this time. My mind creatively was just stymied by these events, and I wanted to do something. I've gone back doing math, doing logic puzzles, Venn diagrams, syllogisms, and all kinds of things, just to keep my mind working. And that's been encouraging and rewarding. I've got I guess you can set up something like this. If you have a laptop or a desktop, you can set up something with a cheapy mic and just basic headset. I mean, the headset I use with this really nice mic, which is great, but it's not way more fantastic than a $30 omnidirectional. You could do a lot more with it, but it's the way I think a mic's supposed to look. There's like two styles for mics, and this is one of them that I really love. Cheapy headset that's just earphones. It's like $10 that you have on back there just so you can monitor. You don't even need that during a monologue like this, but you do need it when you have a guest show up. Recent events we've seen a lot of confusion. One part of this, the confusion and communications about, is something open, is it closed? Should you wear a mask on a bus? Should you not wear a mask? Man was just dragged off a bus for wearing a mask, and it was not wearing a mask. It was unclear. I think at the beginning of this, they're going to mandate something like that. They should have those available there to hand the first one free to somebody to say, hey, you got to have this on. Or before dragging somebody off, give them the option of here's a mask. It's going to risk a lot less contamination if you offer them a mask and then act accordingly if they disregard that or then physically getting an altercation. This is not the time to be wrestling, perspiring, getting worked up, and manhandling each other. It's just counterintuitive to what we're trying to do out there and trying to keep things safe. So it's just something to keep in mind. A little logic goes a long way. We should be, we're not letting people play tennis. We're closing down road work projects, outdoor construction projects. They should be allowed to continue. There is a certain circle that we're with. You have your trusted circle no matter what. And if you are going between work and home and you know the patterns of the 2 or 3 people that you're with on the crew, and you know they're not putting themselves in danger and you're not in danger, that's as safe as you're going to get given this. There is no one way. There's a little bit of executive arrogance that's making people think, oh, there's one solution to this crisis. There isn't. And that's why every day they're coming out with a press briefing where they're contradicting the day before, and it's just getting a little out of control. We have the holy days, Passover and Easter, and people can't celebrate. I don't remember any time in my life when that was a situation where people couldn't celebrate their high holidays. And it's going to be a real test of faith for people. It's going to be real test of faith. And it'll be interesting to see how people get through that. I know some churches are going to be going digital, and they'll be doing things like this. That'll be interesting. I may poke into a church or two if they start to simulcast or do it like that. I may take a peek and look at some different things. That would be an interesting thing. People will, if we use this right, we can use it and we can grow, and that would be really a benefit of doing this. That would just be something amazing if we could just do that. I had people were asking about my friends that I had on, my old friends. What I've been doing is I've been getting people that are reluctant and I did not think would come on, taking advantage of the situation, trying to make some good of it. And so I'm now lined up the stars to get all of them on at once, which is unprecedented. When we get all of them on at once, that'll turn into a battle. There's going to be some topic that's going to come up from 20 years ago where we will go at it, and that will be interesting. I see people that are talking about, in the news about disregarding the warnings to get together for the high holiday. Questions on that. Your circle, their habits, you got to be safe and do it. And I know I've been stubborn about this in many ways, but you've got to think about it. And if there's a chance that you can impact somebody else, you could have gotten exposed and take that exposure to somebody else. That's what you've got to think about. You've really got to think about it beyond yourself. You have to think about it as your ability to impact someone else. And while you may be in good shape, there may be somebody out there who isn't in such good shape. Their health is waning, and you get it back to them. They had an incident in Chicago where one person, from going to wedding to funeral to other things, ended up being, almost like ground zero for infecting a great deal of people. You don't want to be that person. So just think before you do anything. The people want to blame. They want to blame the politicians. We're too quick to want to blame people. Look, there's plenty that's wrong with this. If blaming were going to fix it, I'd be the first one to do it. It's not the time. I don't think anybody could have quite been prepared for this. I think any politician in office, and I'm not for or against any party. I'm for our country succeeding. And I'm all for critiquing and tearing somebody apart if we have the reason to do it after it. I don't want to fight with the pilot while we're trying to land a plane. It's not the time. So, when this is done and everybody starts the Monday morning quarterback, that'll be a better time to do it. The best thing I can say is people seem to be behaving themselves a little better than normal, and that certainly is appreciated. I'm hoping to get Greg on here in a minute because I didn't have plan on doing 2 talks today, and I've come to realize in doing this on this different medium. Once you start learn to doing audio, it's been amplified by this, but you realize how noisy our environments are, and it's just tough to do stuff at home. You're doing something during this, and somebody decides to mow their lawn, and if you live somewhere, you know that nobody mows their lawn at any kind of a schedule, so you can have neighbors all around you that are mowing their lawns, and you can have lawnmowers and just those little single cycle engines going all day, just destroying the peace and calm of an area. It's just tough to find a time. I don't know what the best time is for an audience. I don't think it's night. I'm a night person. I don't think many people are night people. I've got a reputation for being up late. I had somebody last night reach out to me and say, "I know you're usually up. I've got doves in a pillar at my house, and I think something may have attacked them. I need somebody to check that." And I said, "I'm not around, unfortunately." But it's interesting how you get categorized in people's minds, and what people think of to call you for, or to reach out for you for. And we'll get started with Greg. I think he's coming on now, if I'm doing this right. And we'll talk. We'll continue. We'll follow up. If anybody wants to listen, we did what could be the part 1 to this discussion on philosophy. I don't know how good this one will be because we're both tired. And we're both tired, and it's different trying times. We have no script. It's never scripted. It's just a conversation between 2 adults that hopefully turns into something that you get a little bit of value from. If you get any value from it, drop an extra $1 on the plate when you go to church, or hug somebody. Well, I guess you can't hug anybody right now, but owe somebody a hug or something. Pass the kindness on, pass the knowledge on, pay it forward, as they say. Let me give it 1 second. There we go. And Greg gets on. I'm going to rag on him because I noticed that in his own group they do that again because they always blame Sterner because he's at it again. He's not bringing people into broadcasts for people that don't do it. It's very often because of Wi-Fi signals and just the internet in general, which is doing a great job throughout this thing, but it's overtaxed in general. It's kind of like on the old Star Trek when you see them trying to beam somebody and increase the signal strength. It feels like that sometimes when you're waiting for somebody to come on and you're getting them on and they're popping on and off. And I see Greg, and Greg can hear me, and I'm going to throw him right into the pond here. Here we go. Are you there, Greg?
Hey, how's it going, man?
Man of bullshit. Okay.
Well, that's my tagline that I have on my on all my White Horse stuff. So I just figured I'd keep it for you. Why put on airs?
Hey, if who needs pretense? Life is short.
That's right.
How are you doing?
I'm good. It's I'm dealing like the rest of the world is with feeling like I'm in a fishbowl. But aside from that, I'm good. Strange times.
It's amazing how I was talking to old friends, and I've been using this excuse to catch up with old friends. And my friends are pretty much what would be called hermits for the most part. But when you remove the ability or the choice to go out and socialize, then it becomes, you notice,
Oh yeah.
Uh, I really want to go back to being able to ignore people of my own volition, my own choice, back to that comfortable level.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's like somebody's going, you cannot eat vegetables. We forbid you. It's like it would cause a bit of, but I want to go back. How are things going with your family and everything? It's tough.
Well, we're pretty lucky actually because I have an office gig, and so I can work remotely from home. And I got a babysitter now, so I don't have to have a 1-year-old and a 6-year-old as my coworkers anymore. I can actually be in a quiet office. And my wife, she's working at a restaurant doing takeout. She runs the takeout deal, so she's not lost any hours at all. So far we've been unscathed financially, which I know is like a lot better than a lot of people can say right now.
The funny thing about that is that even if you manage to be as lucky as you are, you don't know where it's going to trickle down to you, though, because this is like knocking over dominoes,
Oh well, if we get delayed for another month, I'll be next on the list to get hours cut. I missed the first round, but I don't think I'll miss the second round.
That's happened with me. How's the show and everything coming? The projects?
Really good. We just, I don't know if you saw our season 3 opener or not, but we just did a live. A live stream for the first episode of season 3 for our in-depth dive to Child Protective Services. And it was a good show. It got a lot of positive reaction. I think this season will be successful. Next episode drops Tuesday. And so this season will run for about 10 or 11. And then our next season will be the concept that Jeff and I told you about, where we talk to folks who have, been down the rabbit hole of bad decisions, mistakes, things like that, and talking to them about what the inner workings of their mind were when that was going on, and also what they look like now on the other side of that. Just really trying to get into the heads of people. Really, we're an investigative podcast. That doesn't mean we always have to investigate crimes. I like to investigate people and figure out what makes them tick. So we have about 4 really good interviews already recorded for that, and we're looking for about 3 to 4 more. Okay. That'll be number 4. That'll be season 4.
Okay.
But yeah, all is going well. Unfortunately, we missed you the other night, which we felt a little bit bad about, but I'm sure we'll be able to reschedule that. I can tell you a little bit more detail about that offline.
Oh, okay. Well, that wasn't anything that was written in stone, and there are circumstances.
Yeah.
It wasn't written in stone. It's not like I wasn't standing on the corner with corsage waiting for you to come in a limo and take me to the prom. I'm not destroyed. I'm just you grit your teeth, you get pissed, and you walk away, and and you realize that it's not the end of the world. Where there's bigger problems.
Yeah.
Things happen.
Well, the person that ran that side of the show is going through the ringer right now, and I just think a breaking point was hit, and she had to step away for a little while, but she'll be back. So we can revisit that.
Yeah. I think she was doing what we do when those circumstances happen, and little shell shock, little denial there, and it just pounds you. So what do you think about what do you think about the as a well, see, you've got Man of Bullshit, and I made like a tag thing up here for
the Renaissance Man. Well, that's a little nicer,
you've got Man of Bullshit.
I call myself the Man of Bullshit because I'm always accused every time I'm asked a question. I go into a longer than needed reply, and I have a reserve of words, concepts, thoughts, whatever, that I just kind of like throw out when I'm answering a question. So I just decided to embrace that and say, yes, I am the Man of Bullshit. Come test me. Test my ability to bullshit you. That doesn't mean bullshit in the context of telling lies, just I got a lot of bullshit to spew, and I'll spew it. But I've always enjoyed Renaissance Man too.
Is it truly bullshit, or is it just?
No, it's not really. It's just I'm a verbose person, and more than normal.
Right. The quantity of it is a bit overwhelming for most people. Probably that's probably the real issue.
The one thing I don't want anybody to ever think about me is that I take myself seriously in the sense that I think I'm smarter than anybody else, or that I think I know more than anybody else. So I'll be like, yeah, here's the way I think about it, but hey, don't trust me because I could be full of shit.
Well, yeah, it's like the things that I'm really passionate about. It's clear, and the rest of the stuff I can be iffy about. But I'll talk to you about either. You know,
right?
And last time we talked, we had such a good conversation. Actually, Russell remembered you.
Oh yeah,
points from the yeah. And Russell kind of is like, it's like that movie Memento. Every time I go in, I feel like I'm meeting him for like the first time, sometimes the second time, but it's not like it's 4 years, but he remembered the conversation, and he remembered that it was good because we were talking about really deep subjects, but we weren't telling people, you have to believe this. We were saying, here are your options logically.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the choices. Make a choice. But I was telling a buddy who's working on a little project. I said, get yourself, some Aristotle, a little Plato. Read about Socrates, and get yourself in that mindset of understanding the logic, not because you have to be some wizard with logic, but because it helps to be the foundation for good thought, and just structuring it, because he's over the road, and helped me so much with thinking out everything from just going back and forth with somebody to cases. It's helped to have a good foundation of logic to work from. People don't realize that.
You're using some Aristotle stuff, if I remember correctly. You're using some Aristotle influence in your own crime-solving methods.
I'm trying. I figure, the dude invented logic. No one's really improved upon it greatly since then. How do you invent something like logic? How do you I understand how you come up with the fork, or how, or how somebody was standing there once with crap on their hand going, there's got to be a better way. There should be something we could use, instead of corn cob. I understand that. But when you come up with logic and you start coming up, if A is equal to B, how do you even do that and then carry it out and then come up with something that in its core hasn't been changed in thousands of years, and in effect is people don't realize that logic is the basis of the Boolean, code that was used to drive computers from the beginning and still does today.
Oh yeah, he's pretty much responsible for the entire scientific method, which really was born out of philosophy anyway. Mathematics, physics, and philosophy were all one essentially at one point, and still are. They've just all branched off now from each other, and like, I'm an idiot when it comes to math. I wish I could understand it better because I'm terribly interested in it, and I'm terribly interested in physics. But when you have those discussions and you introduce the equation part of it, I feel like you just kicked me out of your party because I have never been able to understand it properly. I've never been able to grasp. Those things are so hard for me to grasp. I'm still at the remedial level when everybody else has moved on. So philosophy for me that's how I can approach things conceptually, verbally. That's how I can really get to the truth of things from a systems perspective, or a symbol perspective, or an equation perspective. I'm a complete idiot.
Well, see, that's what happens with me with math. You get to a point, math is like going to the gym and like a weight level. I get to the point where I'm out of my class and I'm going to pull something if I do heavy lifting with math. So I have to find my own way to do it. And I find my own, and that's where it deviates, because logic is logic, but you can come to your own grips with it. Science, you have to follow the rules of it. It has rules. That's why it's repeatable. That's why it's science.
Right.
And that's different. And if you can't, I mean, I've done shortcuts with math to pass tests and get through stuff, higher math, but it's easier for me, but it's harder than the method if you understand or you're naturally good at it. When you're not naturally good at something, you have to come up with a workaround. That's what.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because my wife Abby, she is a math person. She was like a mathlete in school, and like that's a strong point for her. So I always have to rely on her to help me out when I need to do anything mathematical. But then when I'm talking about philosophy and I start going deep in the weeds, for her it's like she's like, you lost me about 10 minutes ago. So it's just funny how you have two very intelligent people, but totally different kinds of intelligence trying to tackle the same stuff.
Well, yeah, and
so Mark,
you both know your wheelhouse.
Right. And I know that, when it comes down to it, I better listen to what she has to say. Because, they know when you stop listening, Mark. They know it. It's never a good choice.
Yeah, never fight on a cold night. What were you going to ask me?
I was just saying, what other guys are you talking about? Talking with tonight? Who else are you talking to?
I was talking to an old friend of mine from. We've been friends since high school, and we just don't talk that often. And I knew he'd have some views on this. And what I found is that this has been interesting. I started up. You were on the radio show, and you saw the radio station, the way things there. And I'm restricted there because of the, like anybody is with the format with the station, which isn't a bad thing because I want my show to be that way. I want my show to be something that is not stuck in time. I want it to be something that can be played in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. I don't want it to be dated. And I did that on purpose. This started out as my attempt to not go crazy during this thing and just put out updated information and just kind of rant a little bit or whatever. Then I started talking to people like I'm talking to you now and doing what I said I would never do, and a video version of the show. But the reason I said it, I didn't value the video because I value it when you're not able to be there with the person. It's the next best thing, so you can catch inflection and everything. And then I started to see it, and like this, I've been trying the live thing and everything just to see how people respond to it. It's so fascinating to look at the analytics with videos on this medium and how people react and what they like as an opening and what they like is this and that. And just it's really a look into the human condition. All these things have come out of this. Like I forget what it was. It was something like watching of pornography has gone up by 500%. Well, there's a clear message there. Message there.
Actually, I'm a little bit surprised by that, only because I would think if at least like couples are stuck together. I could see it if couples are apart. But like obviously I live in the same house with my wife, so like I would think that during a time like this, you'd be getting busy a little bit more often rather than less. But I guess if you're separated or you're not in a relationship where sex is all that frequent, then I could see where the porn use would go up.
Yeah, I think people don't want to drive their own car. You know what I mean? They I don't know. I think that I think most circumstances are just revealers and enhancers, and they just whatever your bad habit is comes out. And this has been I've surrounded myself with enough technology and tried to learn the video portion, everything. The radiation here is probably tripled on me because of all the stuff I've been doing. But it's been interesting to talk to people and see how people are coping with this because, we're all, it's really been a great equalizer, I think, for everybody that rich, poor, like your money doesn't give you a different set of rights.
No. And it's all something that it's funny because it's all something that we have in common right now. So you would think that on some level it would bring us all together, and maybe it has. I've been proud of our country in a sense that we've all showed an intense level of cooperation to collectively solve this problem, or at least get it under our control again, which it hasn't been in our control. At the same time, you go to the store, which I just was at the store a little while ago to pick up wine, of course. And, people, as soon as you get closer to someone, I've never felt more in my life like everybody else around me thinks I have leprosy. You know what I mean? So interpersonally, we're getting further apart because there's fear there and the unknown. But at the same time, it's like, well, also, we're all in this together. So there's a sense of community that I think people feel, but they're not necessarily showing in action. And then the other side of it is I'm a little scared of it because that there's some, I don't know how clean your little feed is here, but I'll just say it like this. There's some damn person, probably some doctorate, in sociology, working for the CIA, who is studying every single thing that's happening, and they're studying the level of compliance that's happening right now, and making very detailed studies and I should say making very detailed notes about this study that down the road you can damn well bet will be part of the knowledge that the federal government has as far as how much were the American people willing to put up with, how far could we push. Okay, so you got them in the houses, everybody cooperated. You said we're going to shut down the schools, everybody cooperated. Everybody's got to work from home, everybody cooperated. Shut down the non-essential businesses, everybody's cooperating. Now it's you got to wear a mask when you go outside, or they're really strongly recommending that. Everybody's cooperating. At some point, how far will be too far? And you can just bet, and I'm not saying that there's a big conspiracy going on so they can all control us and make us slaves. I'm not going down that path of lunacy, but you can bet they're studying how compliant we're being and what they can learn from that. I can't state it plain enough. And I don't know, this knowledge can be used if, God forbid, martial law ever does have to be enacted in the streets of a major city. Boy, you can bet some of the data from this experience is going to be used. If they ever do come for everybody's guns, for instance, you can bet data from this experience will be used. I'm not saying they're doing the wrong thing. If I was part of the federal government and it was my job to oversee that, I'd be looking at the same information and determining what did we learn here? How can we use it to our benefit? So that part's a little unnerving, but I'd like to know your thought on that, actually.
Well, I think, like you said in the end there, it's unnerving, but why not? Why not see what lower emissions are doing to the environment while we've got cars off the road? We've got this big experiment going on, so get the data off of it. Now, what creepy things happen with the data, that's a different thing. And I do believe in some ways that many of these things that happen, you can't always. I'm gonna be a little naive here and say you can't control what happens. But I always look at how we respond to what happens. That's what concerns me. Do we learn from the last thing and how much? There's a point where I feel like you said, they're kind of testing us to see how much will they take. At what point will they push against the gates, and fight back? And I do get a sense that some of this nonsense with masks, no masks, this or that. Look, if you're going to lock it down, lock it down. If you're going to quarantine us. Give us the supplies, give us procedures, and expect us to honor them if they're reasonable, logical, and thought out. But you can't be guessing. You can't just be, the quarterback of the high school football team who's in charge because he's the strongest guy left and expect everybody just to blindly listen to you. There's got to be a bit of a plan, and that's where they're lacking. And that's the part that concerns me because there are people that are it's gotten as crazy as there's been a couple examples. You can't buy seeds in the store. They don't want people planting. They don't want people going to their horticulture centers and getting stuff and what. Well, that's exactly what people should be doing now. That's exactly what they should be doing. They've closed down tennis courts. Well, what sport has you further apart? That you're actually in the same game with two people. They're ticketing homeless people for not going indoors. That's just pissing me off because there we go. We're monetizing the tragedy. There's no benefit to that. Now you're going to have somebody who can't pay, that has an outstanding warrant on them when this is over and gets thrown in jail or whatever. And you when they start finding people is not the solution. People are not listening because, one, people can be ignorant, people can be resistant, but also there's unclear direction. You can ask people that are, and people have given up on. I get so many briefings every day for emergency services about what's going on and everything. You can't keep up with them. So they started highlighting parts of it. Well, what happens is people are now just reading the highlights. Anything that's not in highlight, you're not paying attention to.
Well, and God, you can't get away from it anyway. Anytime you turn on anything, this is all that's being talked about, for Christ's sake.
Right. It's the only thing, and nobody. What was it? Somebody was watching. I found myself watching old TV and listening to old music and just going back in time. I mean, I'm almost back to Perry Mason. I have to do something to keep my mind working, and I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't like a lot of current TV. And I'm trying not to sit around and eat or sleep, but I have found that I do take. I have taken. There's this weird transition. I was never a nap guy for the longest time, and then I discovered the nap, and the nap and I became quite intimate. And then what happened was, every now and then you make this transition where you go from sleeping late to sleeping. Well, I'd be getting up to take my nap soon. Why don't I just sleep into the nap and save the inefficiency? And then you're a bear or something at that point, and you're not getting up for the season or whatever. That's the other thing that's messing me up too. I mean, like yesterday in this area, I don't know how it is up where you were, but we had like 4 seasons of weather in 24 hours.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah.
Same thing.
What's going on? I mean,
I don't even think we had no snow whatsoever this past winter. I don't think it snowed once here. Maybe a few flurries, but I don't think it snowed even once.
Yeah, it wasn't. I remember having to shovel out once and really didn't even need to have it out. It was like a powder coating,
Right.
Nothing serious. It's strange times, and I feel some sorrow for younger people, the ones that are paying attention, the ones that will be the leadership, and hopefully the good leadership. The people that are going through this and 9/11 in the same lifetime. But I also think that this is, to a degree, not to minimize it, but I think it's being blown out of proportion. We've lost people in 2009. We've lost a lot of people without closing things down. I think every time something happens, we have the ability to broadcast more information about it. And because of that, we can overreact. And sometimes overreacting is good. Sometimes it isn't.
There's always going to be opportunists around any situation. We talked about, that, doctorate in sociology that works for the CIA, with his team of people studying what's going on. And I'm sure on some level that is happening. But to talk about the media, for instance, there are we talked about it on the show. There's different camps in the media, and the major companies that own the media in those branches have certain interests. So it is in some companies' best interests to, if the real threat level, let's say right now, that we should be concerned about is a 7 or an 8, they're going to make it feel like a 10 plus. Okay, so yes, there's exaggerating going on. Yes, there is hype and hysteria trying to be pumped out. But you're also a fool if you think, oh, well, this is all fake, or it's all bullshit, or they're all whatever. Like, no, come on, don't go that far with it. But also understand that yes, there's some hype going on here, because let's say if you are a strongly liberal media right now, and the worse the economy gets right now, that is certainly in your best interest to start talking about in whatever it is, 7 months, or 6 months. It's going to be in your best interest for that to be a talking point. So to think that people aren't being opportunistic, you'd be naive to think that, I think.
Well, what's interesting is that historically there's always been somebody who is figuratively in these situations. it all comes back to money, and the rich will get richer, and the poor will get poorer, and the middle class will stay scared because they don't want to be poor. And there's always been somebody selling, guns and somebody selling butter. I think the world's changed because I think very often now, or guns and band-aids. I think very often now you find that the same person is selling guns and band-aids, you know. So,
very, very possible.
And their motivation to keep things going is great.
Well, when you look at the power structure in this country, and you look at how the essential shape goes up like this, and when you see the very small amount of entities at the top that are pretty much largely in control of so much of our society, yeah, those are very multifaceted, complicated, nuanced interests. And also, like, for instance, Trump was on Hannity the other day, and I don't watch Hannity, but I noticed this video, so I watched it. It was about 40 minutes long. You're not going to hear Trump talking that long anywhere else, so I figured, well, right now is not a bad time to listen to what the president has to say. Whether you hate him or love him, now's not a bad time to hear what the president has to say. So I listened, and he had mentioned that they are working with Johnson & Johnson to develop a vaccine, and he was going to state this publicly, but he said that they're confident in the vaccine happening relatively soon, but it's the testing that's going to take longer. So I think what they're trying to do now is stretch it out enough. Like, nobody thinks the coronavirus is going to magically disappear by the end of May, and that we're all going to be in airplanes again and everything's going to go back to normal. Because if that did happen, you'd ratchet up the infection rate like crazy, and it's like, what the hell did we just go into quarantine for 2 months or 3 months? But I think they're trying to stretch us between where we are now over to. Did I lose you, Mark? I think I lost you.
You started talking about the government. You went off the air. That was great.
You just disappeared. They censored me, I think.
They censored you.
But what I was getting at was that I think they're trying to stretch us far enough that by the time we start to limp back into our normal routines and society starts to, because look, the country can't handle being shut down any more than a few months. It's going to be the impact of this is most likely going to be felt for years into the future, right? But I think they're trying to stretch us far enough that the vaccines will be readily available, if not then within 60 days or whatever. So if we do start seeing the infection rate go back up, even as the weather gets warmer, and you would think the virus will not fare as well during the warm weather, because there are a lot of people that would say that's the case. I think they're trying to bridge the gap between where we are now and where we're going to be when those vaccines are readily available. Because if there's some terrible disease out there and I know there's a cure, I'm no longer scared of the disease. I just know I got to go somewhere and get my shot and get taken care of, right? So I don't know, because otherwise, if they let us out, look, I'm already compliant, Mark.
Yep.
But if we're able to go back to normal it won't be the end of April, but let's say by June. That'd be optimistic at this point. If it's June, this shit's not going to be gone by June. I mean, it's still. There's no way in hell it's going to be gone by, especially if we go back to the way we were, and you got millions of people passing each other and coughing and sneezing over each other in New York City, and you got people in a canned airplane. You can't stop it. So
I don't get the logic of that. Why is air travel still going on? Airplanes are a petri dish under the best of conditions. I'm on a plane, somebody coughs the other end, I turn into monk, and we've got people, and I don't understand. And if you want to, go down the conspiracy road, I start to do it because I think, why are planes still traveling with 6 passengers on them, moving them between regions of the country when we have a quarantine? And there's no profit in them for keeping that plane in the air with 6 people on it that I can understand. So why are they doing it? Why are they doing it? There's got to be something,
I think they're scared. I think they're scared to completely shut it down because they're afraid of I mean, air travel is such an intrinsic part of our society that people still feel like, well, if I really want to be an idiot and I really want to go down to Florida for the beach and pay a $30 ticket for it or whatever it is now, I should still be able to do that. I think I would assume they're scared to completely shut it down. Now, they've completely shut everything else down, but you still have major operations who have decided to run on some level, like empty arena for entertainment companies and some sports, like wrestling and stuff, like are doing empty arena stuff right now. So how are the guys supposed to get back and forth to do the empty arena stuff? You have to, if you cut the air travel out completely, I don't know. All I can think, because when they start infusing money back into the economy and the stimulus happens at a major level, the airlines are going to be the ones that get bailed out probably the most out of anything.
See, I don't consider it a stimulus. I consider it more of a hazard pay or something, Or,
well, I just mean like after the fact, when they, when they start bailing the airlines out who would have otherwise shut down, because can you imagine what's happened to their projections and profit? They've nosedived, no pun intended. And so I think there's a major stimulus coming their way, much like the major bailout of the big auto companies that happened years ago with Obama.
But the difference was under Obama, they all paid back ahead of time. That was what people don't talk about. He had them paid back, and they paid back ahead of time, and it did save the industry. He saved the entire auto industry, and it was initiated by, I think this time, Ford, who didn't take money in the previous ones, who wanted to do it, but they paid back, and that was a success. And maybe they are hanging on so that they can ask for money, and rightfully so. A couple things I've been beating into people's head is that, look, I'm not going to tell you to not buy from these online places, because we're all going to do it. It's just the way the world is. But try and spend a percentage of your money locally, because that online place didn't sponsor your kid's baseball team. That online place wasn't there for you when things hit the crapper. You were banging on the door of the store. We need to go back to a neighborhood level, bodega, almost corner store that was tied to the neighborhood and that would support you. And even when you didn't have money or whatever, would come in and help you, rather than these, we're finding out now, because a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, and they live meal to meal at their house. They don't have a supply in their house. And, and then we see the idiots that are overreacting by hoarding toilet paper, which is just beyond me.
They're fucking idiots, man. Like they're complete idiots. And, like, I get it, the initial panic when, it's like when the big snowstorm's about to hit, everybody loses their freaking minds and are out there getting canned goods and stuff like it's a nuclear winter. But, with this, I'll give you an example. I was at Weiss the other day. Now I try not to use toilet paper. I try to use wipes, just because I'm a little bit sensitive about how not clean toilet paper gets people, and I'm rather grossed out by it. So I've always gone for the wipes, right? The flushable kind. Well, you couldn't have paid to find them. I went on Amazon looking for flushable wipes, and you couldn't find them. I went to my local Weiss the other day to pick up my wine, and I went, and they had, I think it was like 10 little packets of these flushable wipes you couldn't find anywhere. Now, my first instinct was to grab all 10 and take them all, because I'm like, well, this will get me through 10 weeks or whatever. And but I didn't do it. I grabbed 3 or 5, maybe. I grabbed like half of them, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to take them all.
Yeah, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? And I feel like if everybody had thought like that, you wouldn't have had quite the panic that you did. But I mean, even something as simple as you see me puffing on this vape thing. All my local smoke shops are closed, so I've got to go online and order like the liquid that you use for these things, because I've got a nicotine habit that I really am, bad time to try to quit that, right? So it's like I've got no choice but to go to the online. So I'm like happy that Amazon's still running and FedEx is still running, and my own company, by the way, which is a transportation logistics company, thank God they're still running, or I'd be out of a job.
But didn't you? I mean, with Amazon, they sucked us in and got us down to 2-day, next day, same day, and now you look at stuff and it says May 3rd, and you're like, what? It's almost like It's outrageous. It's outrageous.
Right.
And I think everybody is going to lose a little business and gain a little business because of this. And it'll be interesting where it balances out. That vape thing that you do, did you smoke regular cigarettes before that?
Yeah, I smoked for about like almost 20 years, and then I quit 2 years ago in August. But I didn't quit this was what I replaced it with, and I'm kind of still holding on to these. So eventually, I got to let it all go. But I haven't let this go yet. And it's like, well, I can tell you right now, you give me 6 months, I'll guarantee you I'll quit in 6 months. I'll figure it out. I'll get mentally prepared. If you told me when I wasn't expecting it, oh, by the way, as of Tuesday, you won't be able to get these anymore, I'd be like totally stressed out because it's something I wasn't expecting to have to give up.
The whole vaping thing is interesting to me because I don't believe that if you have an addiction, and I know from working in a place where we dealt with adults and addiction, one of the things that I always said wasn't really popular, but I believe it's true, is that you can't get rid of an addiction. All you can do is change addictions. So you got to swap it out with something else. You know, you got to pick something else. You took cigarettes, you traded for vaping, and maybe you'll trade for, chewing of bubble gum, like a teenage girl. Or something will replace it. But don't you worry with the vape stuff that it's not regulating the same way? I feel as bad as cigarettes are, at least we know that enemy. The vape stuff is, there's different mixes and stuff. I feel like there's no data on it. And you have a bunch of people, I see them in hospital that are laying there and saying, oh, I'm sick from it and everything. And I feel like they are overreacting a little bit. But do you have any concern about the mix of it and how it's regulated?
Well, yeah, but you got to keep your head about you when you're thinking about those concerns. Like, for instance, do I think propylene glycol or vegetable glycerin being inhaled into your lungs is healthy? No. And I think you'd be foolish if you did think that. So people that call these like, oh, this is a safe cigarette, this can't give you cancer. No. Does it have a lot less cancer-causing agents directly in it than, let's say, a Marlboro Red? Yeah, as far as carcinogens and tar and that kind of thing. But they don't know what propylene glycol does to your lungs long term. So to think these are safe, you'd be foolish. I don't think they're safe, but I also know that you should get, I get the same stuff all the time. So, at least I know how that affects me. And I'm not having these acute attacks that end me up in the hospital, and I've been using this for quite a while. So I know that at least with this brand, with this person, I'm not having acute negative health effects, at least that I'm having to have an emergency circumstance where I go to the hospital. That being said, I don't know if you caught it, but about 6 months ago, maybe not even that long, maybe it was about that, they made a go for it. They made a real grab for it. And Trump was talking about he was going to ban all the flavored liquid. And India actually banned it completely. They were the only country that banned it. And all you got to do is think about India's economy and think about the main thing that has driven that economy for eons, and it's the tobacco industry. And the tobacco industry would love to see the vape industry shut down. Because think about it. If you took away flavored, even what the states were talking about doing, what Trump was talking, and they might still do, all of a sudden we were getting these news stories pumped to us where all these people were ending up in the hospital and dying from it, which we'd never heard that before. I was doing e-cigs from China 10 years ago before anybody was using them, so just experimenting with them. Anyway, my point was, if you take the flavors out of the equation, 80%, 90% of all the vape companies out there that produce these liquids would be done tomorrow. Because how do you differentiate yourself in a market if you all just have tobacco flavored e-liquid or flavorless e-liquid? There's no differentiation anymore. So at that point, the major tobacco companies would probably own one brand, pump that out into the water supply of everybody, and that's what everybody would be using. This is definitely a concentrated effort on the part of governments around the world, at least the United States and India, who are trying to get these things squashed because there's too much of the market being taken up by them now, and profits are being hurt. That's what it's really all about. That being said, if you think they're healthy, you're a fool. I know that I'm accepting a level of risk there.
Okay.
So
I just feel like that the vape industry is kind of it's like to cigarettes what craft beer is to beer. You know, it's grown so much, and and I don't you know, it's like my dad drank one brand of beer his entire life, and he would suffer through another one if they didn't have the first one.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like this Baskin Robbins a beer thing. And I just see these guys vaping going down the road, and more so than the effects on their lungs, I get concerned because very often I see them in the car vaping, and I'm like, can they actually see through that cloud that's in front of them? You know, where there's that half second or second of gap where there's just this big vape cloud. Looks like an airbag went off when they're going down the road.
Well, it's not even the cloud you got to worry about. It's the film it leaves on your windshield, which is worse than cigarette film. It's way worse, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah, like I have to clean the inside of my windshield all the time because this stuff leaves a film on it that even cigarettes, which did leave a film, didn't leave that kind of film. The thing with beer versus craft beer, I could see where the analogy is, but think about too with cigarettes, the whole country took a stand on cigarettes where it was like, we don't want you to be able to smoke these wherever you want to anymore. We don't want you to be able to smoke in bars. We don't want you to be able to smoke anywhere else. So like the craft beer industry might be hurting, let's say Miller Lite's sales at first, but then Miller Lite or Anheuser-Busch or whatever just buys up all the craft beer companies, keep them under boutique labels, and then keep pumping them out and making money from them. Whereas, and the tobacco industry will do the same if they haven't done it already. They'll buy up all the vape companies and they'll own those too. The ending of the story is going to be the same no matter what. But what you're seeing now is the posturing and the game being played out. The thing was that the country had gone away from cigarette. Like now you're kind of a pariah if you smoke cigarettes. If you come back into the office and you stink like cigarettes, people used to just put up with it and be like, well, you know, what are you going to do? People smoke. Now it's like not accepted. You go into a bar, you ain't lighting up anything. Now you can go in the bathroom, maybe sneak a puff off the vape, but you can't really vape there either because they consider the vape to be like smoking.
Right, they do. I've had to chase people because of vaping, and it's just it's considered the same. And I think that you know you are if you. I think people should be allowed to smoke. I think it should be their choice. I don't think it should be. I think there should be a way that there's a surcharge on anything that can impact your health, and I think there should be a surcharge on that for your medical plan, and you assume the risk and take the risk. I think you don't have the right to expose other people to it, if not choice. But that being said, I find myself on a regular basis being far more offended by people with loud, disorderly children or people that wear too much perfume or cologne rather than cigarettes. And for the longest time, I went through a phase where I would go somewhere before cigarettes were taken out and everybody was treated like an absolute pariah. I enjoyed going to places and asking for the smoking section because I knew that people would not take their children in there. And the smokers were far cooler than the non-smokers for just dealing with things. You know, they were handling it, whereas other people were just up in arms about stuff. I always feel like that smokers had a much better way to end things, you know, I felt like the rubbing out of the cigarette was just like such a better way to end things, whether it be relations with a partner or whatever. You just,
right.
It was
once
so
you
much,
get done telling that person off and you flick it right in their face, like in the movies, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Or you just, I just thought it was just such a cool way. I've never smoked. I figure if I live, you know, I'm working out the magic number. If I get past that number, there's a lot of vices I want to start.
Oh, hell yeah. If you could be guaranteed, like, if you told me tomorrow you'll live till 88 no matter what you do, man, I'd be doing all sorts of bad things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I there's things I just wanted, you know, I just want to try. I don't know if you saw it on Saturday Night Live. Dave Chappelle made a guest appearance when Eddie Murphy was on. And he lit up right on stage with a cigarette. And he pulled out a cigarette and lit. And Eddie Murphy said, "I don't think you could do that." He said, "I know." And he says he just smokes. And I thought that was great. A little act of civil disobedience, a little act of defiance, because I don't know. I think sometimes we overstep, and I think if someone wants to smoke, it's their choice as long as it doesn't negatively impact people. I mean, we can't regulate people's weight or their cologne or their tobacco or their alcohol. We just can't do it. We've just got to educate people to make better choices. And they may not always be the choice we agree with, but just better choices.
Well, and then if you really want to think about conspiracy kind of thing, so when I was 18 and smoking, you could get a pack of Camels for $1.50. Now, last I checked, like in the Turkey Hill windows, it looks like the pack of cigarettes is like $8. The name brand cigarettes are $8. So look at it this way: you made it so, and I know there's not some shadow overarching government that makes all the decisions, blah blah blah. But you see, it became not cool anymore to just smoke your heart out and to just be a smoker and not have society look down on you. But you've whittled it down now to a group of people who will like smoke no matter what, like pry it out of my cold dead hand kind of people. And they're willing to pay 4 times plus what I used to pay for it when I was 18. So you can afford for your entire market of people, potential customers, to go down by 75% and still make the same money. And people are going along with this.
What I don't get about that is I will watch smokers go get their fix, and they will take, so they've got the pack, and the cigarette costs $1 or $2 or whatever, and they smoke the cigarette and they go puff puff and then throw it, and I'm like, no. I've said this so many times to smoker. If I were a smoker, I would smoke that until I burned my fingers. You know.
I remember when I was trying to quit in my early 20s, I would go to my old ashtrays literally and pull the sizable butts out of there and smoke what was left. When you've been down that dark road, you look at somebody wasting 3/4 of a cigarette, and you're like, "You son of a bitch! You have no idea how dark things can get." But I just think you know what it is. I think they put it out of their mind. They're used to not having that $8 a day. It's gone. It's wasted. They've been wasting it for so long now. They don't even think about it anymore. It's like when your Social Security comes out of your paycheck or your insurance comes out of your pay. You just get used to not having that money, and it was like almost like it wasn't there to begin with.
Right. Yeah, they
So,
convince you of that. The how has I know you guys had on the show, you had the first season, and that was out of the park, and then you had the second season where you went in a different direction, and that didn't turn out exactly where you planned. And you're kind of, I feel like you guys are flying a plane, and you kind of like took the tip of one wing off, and you're correcting, and you're back up in the air.
well, it's funny because people thought actually Jessica, the focus of our first season, was one of the ones propagating this because she wanted she wanted that show and the success of that show to always be associated with her, which, fair point, the success is associated with her. That being said, for the Anna Maciejska season, we retained 75% of our audience. So like a lot of people stuck with us through that second season and liked the second season. They just didn't like that we got they felt worse for us by getting kind of shut out and shut down than they felt that we did a bad job. Because when you have a case where no one has covered it very well at all, or I shouldn't say very well, but not very much at all, excuse me, then for a group of people to produce 7 hours on it, which we did, I think they were happy to go that deep into the story. So season 2 was not quite the failure that a lot of people would like to say it was. In fact, it wasn't really a failure. It just did not meet expectations. Those are two big, majorly different things. I think season 3, Child Protective Services, I think that's going to be right back a little bit closer to our wheelhouse. Look, we're not you guys. We're not going to really go out and search and find bodies. We're not law enforcement. We're not going to be able to open those doors. So for us to be able to really investigate, and it warmed my heart to see how many people in the CPS world were willing to talk and willing to come to us and give us information and interview with us long form. And I think the average person listening, that's going to be more of an immediate emotional hot button for them to think about their kids getting taken away, or to think about abusive situations, blah, 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 and marriage drama. I think that's a little bit more in our wheelhouse than maybe season 2 was.
Yeah, I think the thing was I think the failing was that I think part of it was the whole going. I think it was going to do 30 episodes was one part. I think it was just too much, for anything almost. And then I think your audience, and this isn't to slam your audience or anything, but I think your audience, I don't think they wanted a who done it. They wanted a she done it. Now let's light our torches. They didn't want a mystery or puzzle. They wanted a issue that had some definition that they could get into and blah blah
Well,
blah.
I think they would have wanted a whodunit if we could have produced the whodunit at the end. I don't think they wanted an unanswerable whodunit necessarily.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody wants that, and the solution is, but nobody wants. It's like when you watch the shows on TV, and you watch an hour and a half, and at the end, you're no closer to a solution than you were at the beginning. That's frustrating beyond.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think the only thing, well, and the other freedom that we have is that I still talk to you all the time. Not as much as we were during the season, but we still talk relatively frequently, or at least we keep in contact. You got your finger on the pulse of things going on. Other people have their finger on the pulse of what's going on. When there is finally a break in the Maciejewski case, which I hope there is, we're going to cover it. We're going to cover it, and we're going to be able to say, hey, here's the cherry on top of that sundae we have been keeping in the freezer this whole time. But I think you and I have talked about it at length. It wasn't the right season for us at that time with the resources we had and what the expectations of our audience were.
Right.
It was just not the right season. And you know what? I would rather have an aggressive failure than a safe success. And I think that, I give Jeff and the team all the credit in the world for taking on something that was a challenge. And I'm still proud of that season, even though it didn't quite go the way I would have liked it going. I think we could have done more than 8 episodes. I think we probably could have done more like 12, and that would have been because we didn't do any roundtables. The first season had of those 30 some odd episodes, they had like a shit ton of roundtables in there with just the producers talking about it. We really didn't do any of that with Anna because the team was breaking apart at the same time that we were trying to finish this whole thing up. So it was snake bit in a way.
It was the perfect storm for against it, and I think that I don't think the topic of Anna lent itself so well to roundtables as the first season did. From what I've heard,
not as well. No,
the first season was if you just stood still long enough, she would give you something. She just kept delivering.
Oh yeah. They never. That's the thing. They never planned on that season going 30 some odd episodes. They planned on it being like an 8 to 12 episode season, like you would normally think. The one thing I'll say is, I think we could have done roundtables with this one to at least get to 10 or 11 episodes because the last episode where it's me and Jeff just talking in the overflow lot in Charlestown Meadows where the car was found, where we were standing in the very parking space where the car was found. And that we had, I think that's like a 25 or 30 minute segment of that last show. And people told us that was their favorite show we did the whole time. So I do think there would have been some audience for us just talking about things.
Well, that was really, I told you, I said, that was what I wanted the whole time. The very beginning and the very end were great. Right. The stuff in the middle was a little floundering. At the end, you guys were really just two human beings trying to understand what may or may not have happened to another human being in the middle of a mystery. There was no pomp, no circumstance, no arrogance, no, it wasn't over the top or anything. It was just the whole human condition. And it was great. And one of the things I loved when I listened to it was that you guys had not gotten mad, but a little annoyed that, we didn't want to do a search when you asked us about searching the area. And I explained there's nothing to see in that area. It's been covered. And I gave you the parameters of it. And you went out there and you looked around. I was like, there's nothing here. If it's been checked and you would see it and there's houses right there and everything. And you know,
we weren't happy that it wasn't going to happen, but I understood why you didn't want to do it. I was more mad at the people who could have helped us and didn't for stupid reasons. Your reasons weren't stupid for not wanting to do a search. If we had some evidence worthwhile, you always told me from the beginning you would do a search if I gave you a good reason why. Unfortunately, we didn't have any good reason to search a specific area because we didn't have any more information than they had at the beginning. What I was upset about was the supposed people who wanted to solve the most, big leaguing us out of the equation. And those people I was legit mad at and still don't hold in very high regard, but I don't care anymore because it's in the past. I don't wish them ill will or anything.
Well, what was interesting is that when you got to the location, and it's just kind of a metaphor for everything, you saw it through different eyes, you know, and you could see it there, and just see this, because lots of times you could see a picture of an area or you can see a map of an area or whatever. Nothing beats being in the area. I don't know how many areas I planned searches and looked at maps, done all my research, and then gotten there and said, it's not like it was on the map. It's completely different. You know, and the first thing guy says,
meaning it looked more promising on the map than it did in person?
It looked bigger. It looked smaller. It looked this. It looked that. It just isn't what it is once you get there. And, you know, and that happens quite a bit. And the availability of quick real-time mapping fools us sometimes. And when we get there, the dynamics of the area are different. It doesn't mean that you don't do the area. We did that area a couple times. But it's like I said, there's no, you know, I don't go above what we call probability of detection. I don't ever go above 80%. 80% is perfect world. That's cemetery, parking lot, golf course. I don't go above that. But that area was pretty high due to the nature of it, the time of year and everything, the proximity of the houses. And you can see when you were there, you could really only go, if you're walking from the car down, you can only go to the left because to the right, you're in people's yards.
Right.
Plus, they're looking at you. There were people, there were dogs, there were different things. It would be pretty ambitious to go there and actually do something with somebody and not risk getting caught, because it was a reasonably active walking trail and with high visibility, especially that time of year. But it's all those different factors, that come into play. But it's been, now you guys are doing different things. What do you think you're going to do? I mean, do you have season 4 planned? You have season 4 planned.
Yeah, four is planned. Before I go to that, I got about another 13 minutes or so here that I'd like to spend with you, because I still have a couple of things I really want to talk to you about. I just am giving you the 13-minute warning because I got another call with for this writing session we're doing. But in the time we have left, I wanted to still know from you. I don't know if you plan on putting this conversation out there in some form. I'm cool with that if you do, or if you're just recording it for your own.
It's going out live now.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. I knew you were recording it, so I assumed we were speaking to either a current audience or an eventual audience. But what I will say is this: you probably won't want to speak on this at the moment, but I'll ask the question anyway, and I won't be offended if you say I'm not ready to talk about that. But do you think that the Anna case is dead for now, or do you feel like something's going to come down the pike here sooner than later?
I think that it's at a stall, not for any sinister reasons, but I think it's at a stall because it got caught in the changeover of administrations in Chester County. And I think there was a changeover in administration with the state police and also with the district attorney's office. And I think that created a little bit of a stall. And I know, and I'd spoken and met with people, and it was on the radar and it was being reevaluated, but new crew has to look at it with new eyes, which can be good. Mm-hmm. But then what happened was this coronavirus came in. So everybody said, oh, Corona, I can't do anything. Corona. You know, when this is the perfect time to look for people in cold cases. We wrapped up one cold case. I think I told you about that. It was 5 years old. This is the time of year I wrap up cold cases. So I think it is at a stall. I don't think it's dead in the water in any way. I think it's at a stall, but the passage of time is making it less and less winnable or easy. It's, time is the enemy. Time is always the enemy.
Yeah. I would love when it does eventually get resolved, I would love to come on here and talk to you or have you on one of our shows because I do think that I think we could have an incredibly intriguing conversation when we do finally have those missing pieces, if the day ever comes.
Well, when I can say everything, when the day comes, and it won't be jeopardizing a case in court, because that's my fear of impacting a case that goes to court for potential prosecution of someone.
Right.
When I can say stuff without fear of jeopardizing a case, that'll be a good talk. That'll be a talk I look forward to.
Yeah, it'll be down the road. That's for sure. But I'm just saying, when you know that we came from this angle, that we entered it in, and you had been around, 3 years before that or 2 years before that, I think being able to come back with that perspective when we finally do have an answer, if it ever comes, I think that'd be tremendous. I don't think of the whole world in content terms, but it would be tremendous content for a listener who was interested. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. It'll be a different story because it will have the ending.
Yeah.
And that makes it a complete package. Right now, this case has been a bunch of middle. There's no beginning and no end. We never knew when the beginning happened. We speculate, and we don't know when the end's going to happen. We're dealing with a bunch of middle.
Yeah.
But you wanted to say some other stuff before you go, because you've got to do the writer's thing.
Well, I was going to say, you'd asked what we have going on. So we got a lot going on right now. We officially, I don't know if we told you, we officially incorporated I think it's going on 2 months now. We officially incorporated in Florida. We are an official company, White Horse Media Group. There's a whole other story I can tell you related to that, not in this public forum, but I'll tell you an interesting story about that sometime. Okay. That being said, we have 3 main podcasts right now. We have the comedy podcast that you were on, Pookie in Paradise, which was still, we got tremendous feedback from that. You were great. We loved having you on there. The other one is the Moms and Mayhem show, which you'll be doing down the road here pretty soon, we hope. And then there's the Ever Evolving Truth, which I was very pleased with how the season 3 the season 3 premiere came off. And I'm really, really psyched about Rogues Gallery because that's number 4. And I know that there's still some people I want to get for that. There's still some people I want to talk to other people about getting, who I think would round out those last 4 interviews really well. But essentially what we're doing is we want to talk to people without judgment who've gone down some dark, bad roads of either criminal activity or just ruining their lives completely with poor decisions or bad luck or both. And really getting into the minds of those people to talk about where was your head at when all this was going on? What were you thinking? What did you think there would be no consequences? Did you not care, etc.? And then to talk about where they are now. How did they finally get their asses out of the fire? And who are they now as a human being? And the reason we want this season to come out is because, just like Jessica in the first season, I made a God's honest pitch to her to come back on and do an interview with me, where we wouldn't talk about any of the nonsense and the drama and whatever. We would just talk about the future, what she hoped to be, the kind of person she hoped to be, not who everybody was labeling her as. Because I felt like with her, all we kept doing was bringing the same corpse out into the town square and stoning it all over again, and she was allowing it to happen. And I wanted to change. The season 4 is born out of that same sort of idea. We are not here to judge anymore. We're not looking to just keep stoning the same people over and over again. You've paid your debt. I talked to a guy the other week, and man, I at the end of the interview, I said, I don't think that this gentleman would tell you that he is currently in hell, but he knows what hell looks like. And boy, he sure does. So being able to show a redemption story for some people, but more important, I hope this reaches someone who is currently in or about to enter into some of the same directional paths that those people started out with, and will hear this and say, oh shit, maybe I don't want to go down that road, or maybe I shouldn't go down that road, or maybe I ought to listen to this guy. If it was just the host telling me that and he didn't understand what I was going through, I wouldn't listen to him. But this other guy that is willing to talk to him is telling me the truth, and maybe I can learn from it. That's the whole point of the season. We're calling it Rogues Gallery just for the marketing piece of it. Rogues Gallery is like a comic book thing, the interesting list of villains. But these people aren't really villains. These people are people who did some bad stuff, and now they are living a different life. And man, they've been fascinating interviews. I think when all is said and done, it'll probably be my favorite season of the 4. But I'll tell you, for season 3, our new team member Andrea Speck did a tremendous job with her interviews, and I think people really like it. So that's what we got coming up. And Jeff and I are, like I told you before, we're working on a screenplay. He's currently in a master's program at Full Sail University that has its own backlot and equipment and everything else. So we're writing a screenplay not as a pipe dream type of situation. We're writing a screenplay for a film we believe that we could actually film on location without an exorbitant amount of money, using all the resources that Full Sail and that program and the people around that general area, using all those resources to do it. So we've been busting our ass, having 4 and 5 hour writing sessions, trying to get the screenplay where it needs to be. So that's a huge, exciting thing for the future. We're talking about a couple of different shows we want to do as far as podcasts go. So yeah, there's just there's a lot going on, and I'm probably forgetting some of it right now, but that's the bulk of it.
No, it's good. It's good to have a couple irons in the fire just in case.
Right.
Yeah.
So what about you? Do you think that Unsung will remain as it is, but you'll also be doing this as more of a frequent content offering?
I don't know. I don't know if you're old enough to remember. I guess it was Nightline with Ted Koppel.
I know Ted Koppel. Yeah.
Well, he started Nightline. It came out of when there wasn't a 24-hour news cycle. I think it was the Iranian hostage or the embassy thing there. It was giving updates, and the show lasted beyond the incident. And I don't know if this is going to become my Nightline, where it lasts beyond the incident that I'm doing out of boredom. Unsung will always have a special place in my heart. And I know even by wording it that way, I'm saying like I've got some plan. There's no plan, to quote the Joker in Batman, do I look like a guy with a plan? And I want to keep doing it. But I have in a way fallen in love with the ability to interview you in the comfort of your situation, and I'm in the comfort of where I am, and it's given flexibility. So this interview is happening at 11 something at night, whereas at the studio I had to get you at a certain time. There are advantages both way. Now I can take this interview that I did with you here, strip off the audio, and put it on Unsung.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I could do that. I could repurpose it. But there's so many different things, but it's like ultimately, even what you want to do, you want to have, White Horse Media, which encompasses many things, because you don't know where this is going. I see more and more people are going back to audio. They're going back to, I'll say radio, but I mean podcast. I mean audio.
Yeah, it's radio of today. Yeah, absolutely it is.
They're going back to it. They're tired of staring at screens. They're overstimulated.
Well, the thing about audio is, all podcasts is radio on demand. It's radio. We're speaking into microphones. We're reaching an audience. It's just radio on demand. That's the only difference. And the cool part is, I listen to a ton of podcasts driving, doing dishes, on my breaks, things like that. Well, right now, more than ever, you have time to listen to hours and hours of audio. So with you, if Unsung Everyday People becomes sort of your overarching umbrella brand, there's nothing keeping you from quick hits of content like this one, where it's very little planning. You have somebody on, you talk for an hour, and you got a cool show, a cool podcast. And you don't have to not do what you did before. You can have, like, when we do the Ever Evolving Truth, if that's all we could do, I think Jeff would lose his mind. Where Jeff has the most fun is when he can do the Pookie show, so he has that as something in addition to the Teat, but Teat doesn't go anywhere. So I wonder if you're the same.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is that when you're doing, like I said, Unsung will always hold a special place in my heart. The difference is I have to get my gas. Even though it's not planned, there is a certain crafting of a show that's timeless, blah, 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 blah. And then we get, and then we go, and when I do this, I did this as a response. This is the opposite, not this interview with you, but the part before that is when I'm talking about events and stuff. I used to think to do a daily thing, to do a video thing, it's much more difficult. No, it isn't. Here's the trick. You just got to want to prattle on and ramble like a grumpy old guy about what's going on in the world. And the trick, which nobody tells you, is you have to be prepared that it's got a shelf life of 8 hours. It's never going to be rerun. It's gone after that time period. It's gone. The beauty of it, what I'm figuring out is the beauty of it is to do the prattling, do the interview with you, then do something else.
Yeah.
And stack it like that. That's what I'm seeing now. So I've just taken this as an opportunity to learn, and I've talked with Jeff about some video stuff and everything, and about some different uses of technology. I've done stuff on here. I've added. This is just an amazing platform. I do my old stupid stuff when I'm building my ranch. I have my different borders.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, I mean this is where I'm comfortable, right here. And what I normally leave up is the modern framed widescreen TV.
Right.
But you can do so much here. This is a good, simple platform for getting something out and publishing it quickly. Right. And if you publish something, if we have a talk and we ramble on like we are, and one person says that they enjoyed it, that's all I need. That's all I need.
You just provided enjoyable content for someone who otherwise would not have been entertained, and you entertain them, because this is entertainment. Two people talking, that's entertainment.
Right. They're
not boring.
well, we had I had a conversation with a friend from high school, and he had a shirt on, and he said it was a striped shirt. He's put on some weight, and he said it's an XL. I said, there's no way that's an XL. And he said, yeah, it's an XL. You want to bet? I said, $10. I said, I'll go 5 on that. I said, but how do I win the bet? I've got to have you remove your shirt on camera. And I don't want to go there because I remember that first suit you had under there. And he said, I'll take it off camera. I'll bring it back. I'll show the label. I said, you're on. This is good entertainment. He came back. The label was missing from the shirt, which I still say he cut it off to win the bet.
He probably
did.
It's
still a tie. But it's interesting. It's authenticity. It's the banter between people that I'm not slamming you about something. You're not slamming me. And there's no presumptions. There's no subterfuge. There's too much of that in the world.
Yeah. I can't take it when I see an interview with two people and it's very clear that one is just there to get the other to slip up.
Yeah, they're stepping on each other. They're just battering each other. I'm not into that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to hold you up. I want you to get to your writing. You got plenty to do.
Well, here, let's talk soon because I know we got a couple more subjects to discuss as far as going forward with you, on our shows, and you had a couple people that you thought I might want to talk to. So we'll talk soon, man.
Absolutely. You guys stay safe and we'll be in touch.
All right. Have a good one, man. Take it easy.
You too. Bye-bye. It was a good talk. We had Greg Sterner on, and I don't know if that was as good as our last talk because we're not video guys, but it was a good talk. And hopefully everybody enjoyed it a little bit, and it'll get some replays. Take care. Stay safe. Remember, always, truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. And best media is always wearing pants. So don't trust those Winnie the Pooh bottomless media guys. Always sitting down. You guys have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.